Let us welcome Chair of the Board for the Texas Blockchain Council, Natalie Smolenski.
I am just thrilled to see so many people gathered with us here today. Thank you so much for taking time out of your lives to make Texas a leader in yet another way. So we are here today in Austin, Texas, to inaugurate a new era. The political and social institutions we have inherited, the state, the nation, the academy, the church, the family, are undergoing a process of rapid transformation and redefinition. This transformation is largely the result of our transition as a species to an information society, more globally interconnected than ever before, and with a keener awareness than ever of our own interdependence as a species. But it is also the result of a commitment to human progress, to liberty and justice for all, that is being rediscovered anew by younger generations. They are now asking, as they enter this brave new world, what does prosperity, opportunity, and freedom look like for us? What options are on our table? And what options must we make for ourselves? When we talk about what's on the table, in many ways, what we're really talking about is, what does this platform enable? A platform is a political economic institution that creates a foundation and framework that enables other institutions to be built on top of it. To date, we have been functioning from the inherited platforms of government at the local, state, and federal levels, religious and cultural communities, families, and corporations, among others. These platforms are now finding expression in the digital world, which we are finding is not simply a one-to-one translation, but alters the possibilities enabled by these platforms fundamentally. For example, a neighborhood online often looks and acts very differently from a neighborhood of contiguous physical homes. In other ways, however, they are remarkably similar. This virtual overlay over the inherited institutions of society presents unique challenges for which we need better theories and better accounts. Politics is seldom considered an engineering discipline, even less often a science, despite its disciplinary name when studied at university. This has resulted in a characterization of politics as, to paraphrase anthropologist Clifford Geertz, an endless refinement of the debate rather than a buildable knowledge and practice that can be measured, described, improved, and falsified. I'm here at this summit to inaugurate the call for a building thinking of a scientific politics unafraid to refactor, replatform, and even greenfield whole areas of political economy. This is how we will be able to skillfully navigate the transition we are amidst as a human species. The new political and economic institutions being built in the communication and value protocols running as global superstate entities are not only disruptive toward our legacy platforms, but open and foreclose very different possibilities for humanity. These digital protocols literally encode values, processes, and hierarchies, or lack thereof. This has set the stage for a divergence between technologies that are purpose-built to instantiate levels of social control unprecedented in human history, and those architected and distributed to make practical those civil liberties that in the past were only promised through various political documents like the Magna Carta, the Bill of Rights, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, or through normative arrangements, the various local, federal, and international norms, laws, and treaties. These contests and contrasts between regimes of control and regimes of liberation are strikingly visible in projects such as TCP/IP and DNS, transitioning from US Department of Defense initiatives to enabling the most extensive public information sharing operations of all time. And in Saudi Arabia's or China's early and extensive work to proxy this open internet, and their ongoing attempts with Russia to upgrade the network protocols to be fundamentally surveillable and to cripple TCP/IP's open survivability by controlling who can and cannot utilize the network. Or similarly, Consider how cryptography moved from being computational dark art, whose work product was deemed a munition subject to export controls, to securing the peer-to-peer communication and commerce of the planet's people and organizations. In the last few years, these technological contrasts have been summarized using a series of binaries: centralization, decentralization, permissioned, permissionless, sovereign, self-sovereign. These distinctions have entered into common usage following the two main use cases, money and identity, of what Satoshi Nakamoto called a time chain, which in the first decade of the 21st century famously came to be called a blockchain. Whether as trustless money, Bitcoin, or as a self-sovereign identity, beginning with block certs and developing rapidly via BTCR, ION, and other Bitcoin-enabled protocols, the different paradigms inherent in the architectures of these fundamental building blocks of a society shift the locus of sovereignty, authority, and ability to self-determine in the direction of the individual. These digital protocols are instantiating social fabrics capable of holding our highest political aspirations. The peoples native to these forms, already using and becoming in light of them, are through their actions calling for a political thinking that incumbent institutions like the academy, the branches of Enlightenment era government, the military, the press and media, the corporate firm, religious institutions, are largely unequipped to think due to their structural dependency on legacy forms of political economy. As a result, the necessary political thinking has largely gone unthought. But not only has the requisite thinking not occurred, our institutions, through their very success, have become subject to the laws of social decay and civilizational decline, which have repeated throughout history and are now repeating again. The more prosperous a society becomes, the more wealth inequality characterizes it, and the heavier the administrative apparatus, the government, becomes in terms of resource costs. Eventually, a game of musical chairs sets in, where society can no longer produce enough energy to support the costs of a growing elite class, and a war over scarce resources begins. We are all feeling these things at a visceral level. We know that somehow things are much harder today than they were before, and much harder than they need to be. This is a symptom of decline. This summit is a call to imagine the next steps that must be taken to ensure that we allocate our limited resources as individuals and collectives in a way that breaks us out of the gravitational pull of global and regional civilizational decline. This largely means eschewing the terms of tired ideological debates that have become profitable institutions in their own right: communism versus socialism versus capitalism, right versus left, etc., which have demonstrated success largely in their ability to sway elections in the perpetual theater of democracy. When we speak of Bitcoin, therefore, we do not invoke any political party, any ideological tribe, any cultural or religious group. While most of the lawmakers who will see with us today belong to the Republican Party, blockchain technology has enjoyed broad bipartisan support in the Texas state legislature. While some politicians like to sow fear, uncertainty, and doubt about Bitcoin to advance their careers, they are the aberration, not the norm. Similarly, while some people like to announce their support of Bitcoin through cultural practices, like what they eat, wear, or like to do as a hobby, these are only a small fraction of the millions of people who own and transact with Bitcoin around the world. Bitcoin is for everyone, and it is here to stay. Politicians who embrace this message of unity and purpose will have a bright political future. I therefore invoke Bitcoin not as an ideology, but as a protocol institution that is platforming new generations of people in America and around the world. Through its ability to harness energy, to collapse the distinction between money and capital, Bitcoin is creating the kinds of dramatic efficiencies required if we are to reverse the curve of collapse and move once again toward prosperity and growth. And perhaps most remarkably, it achieves prosperity without sacrificing liberty. In fact, while enshrining liberty in a protocol that is not vulnerable to revision at the whim of human governors. So let this summit be an invitation to think together. As I said earlier, without a robust theoretical account of political economy, we will kill things that we should nurture and nurture things we should kill. Today, we have assembled a brain trust of leaders building value in diverse ways to help us take a wise and informed approach to navigating this, our human transition to our next stage of civilizational complexity, liberty, and prosperity. Let's begin.